a very warm welcome to our YouTube session. I really hope that you guys are doing well. Alright, so the topic of today's discussion is actually very interesting and it is very important. So what I have done here is that you have a lot of peasant and tribal movements which have happened all throughout modern history, right? So what I have done here is that I have made it in a tabular form. That is exactly what our topic of discussion today is. So we will be discussing the peasant movements at a glance. So this is in a very tabular form. You will have all the information over here in a tabular format. So let's start with the discussion. Okay. So the first one that we have is the Rangpur Revolt, which is 1783, and this was in Dinajpur, northern Bengal. Who's the leader? It is Dheeraj Narayan. And what was the reason? The burden of revenue was placed at the highest. Now, if you all remember, when we had done about the revenue settlements, you also know that the revenue settlements were actually quite high, isn't it? So, the highest of the revenues were to be paid to the zamindars, who then obviously passed it on to the peasants, okay? Also, there was this oppression of the ijardari system, which I'm sure you are aware about. If not, you can let me know in the comment section below. What was the result of this? So, peasants grew violent and symbols of government oppression were destroyed, like the courts, the granaries, etc. They were seized by the peasants, okay? Then we have the Moplah Rebellion. This is 1836-1854. This is in Malabar. And who were the leadership? There were many local leaders. Now, what was the reason behind? The new revenue policy of the Britishers. And what was the result? Multiple movements were there under the Moplah Rebellion, which took years to suppress. Fine. Then we have the famous Indigo Revolt, which I'm sure you've read in a lot of detail. This happened in 1859. The region was Bengal. Who was the leader? It was Digambar Biswas and Vishnu Biswas. Forced indigo cultivation was the reason. And what was the effect? So this was actually quite effective because of the revolt. By 1860, indigo cultivation had ended. Fine. Then we have the Pabna peasant uprising, 1873 to 76, Bengal. Ishwar Chandra Rai and Shambhu Pal. Forced eviction of peasants from their own lands and high rates of taxation. So when the peasants failed to pay their taxes, the peasants were forced to evict from their own lands, which obviously was not a good thing, because this was not a rented land for them. This was their own land. Okay? So, what was the result? We have the Bengal Tenancy Act of 1855, which was passed. Land ownership of the farmers was recognized. So, this is an important one. So, land ownership of the farmers, that yes, farmers are owning the land, was recognized. Then we have the Deccan Riots. I'm sure you have read this. In class 12th also you remember this in the form of Deccan Riots Commission. So the year is 1875, region is Pune, Ahmednagar, Sholapur, Satara in Maharashtra. The leaders are Baba Sahab Deshmukh. What is the reason? Vicious circle of Mahajans oppression, increase in revenue by 50%. So the revenue rates have been increased by 50%, and as a result, the peasants would have to borrow money from the money lenders or the Mahajans, and the Mahajans were so clever, or you can say so greedy, that they were literally charging exuberant amounts of interest on a very small principal amounts. Fine. So what was the result? Social boycott of Mahajans and passage of the Deccan Peasant Relief Act of 1879. Then you have the Bijolia movement, 1905 to 13, this was in Mewar. And who were the leaders? We have Bhup Singh Rathi, Vijay Singh Pathik, Manik Lal Verma. What was the reason? Various taxes on the peasants. The number of taxes had risen up to 86. The peasants refused to work on the farms of the Jagirdars. Okay? That was the end result. Next, Champaran Satyagraha, Kheda, and this, I don't think we need to discuss this because this is something I'm sure you would know about, right? But let's just glance through it, okay? So Champaran 1917, what was the region? Champaran, Motihari, Betia, Madhubani. Leader was Mahatma Gandhi. What was the reason? The Teen Kathiya system increase in revenue. Plantation owners agreed to return 25% of their illegal recovery. So these are at glance, guys, fine. And I'm sure when you read the Champaran movement or when you read about the Teen Kathiya system, you would understand what this actually meant, fine. Then you have the Kheda Satyagraha 1918, Kheda, Gujarat. Again, the leader is Mahatma Gandhi. The reason was revenue demand even after crop failure. So secret directives were issued by the government to take revenue from only those who could give it. Next is Peasant Movement in Awadh 1919. The regions are Pratapgarh, Sultanpur, Rai Bareli, Faizabad. Who was the leadership? Jhinguri Singh, Baba Ramchandra. What was the reason? Increasing revenue demands, oppression by the talukdars. And what was the result of it? Social boycott of talukdars was practiced. Then you have the Eka movement from 1921 to 22. Then it was, what was the region here? It was Barbanki, Hardoi, Sitapur, Bairat. Who was the leadership? The leadership was Madari Pasi. And what was the reason? Increase in revenue demands. And what was the effect? Small zamindars also participated. Now guys, notice one thing, that most of the peasant revolt were against the rise of revenue, against the rise of taxes, most of them. Okay. Then we have one more Moplah Rebellion, 1921, and this was in Malabar, alright. Who were the leaders? Ali Mulsiar, V.K. Haji, Sithi Koya Thangal, Chembrasi Thangal, and then you have Moitin Kutti Haji. And what was the reason? The reason is again the same, increase in revenue demands, forced eviction of peasants. But eventually, this grew very communal, as in it grew into a riot between two religions, and hence it was crushed in 1921. Then we have the Bardoli Satyagraha 1928. This happened in Bardoli Taluka of Surat. Who was the leader? Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. Increased revenue demands and forced labor were the reasons, fine. And what was the end result? The rent increment was brought down to 6.03%. Not much, but at least something was achieved. Next is Andhra Movement. This happened 1923-38. This was in the coastal region of Andhra. Satyanarayan, Raju, N.G. Ranga were the leaders. And what was the reason? Sorry. The reason was again the revenue demands and fishing rights. The fishing rights of the peasants have been taken because they were being taxed on that as well. What was the result of it? Foundation of peasant associations by Ranga. Revenue demands were addressed by the government. Next. Then we have Peasant Movement of Malabar 1934-40. This was in the Malabar region of Kerala. Satyanarayan Rao, Dandu Narayan Ranju, T. Parakrasham, Kandra Venkataya. These are the leaders over here. What was the reason? Feudal cess, demands of advance revenue payment. Already the revenues are so high, and then you have a demand of advance revenue payment. This is actually too much, fine. Then we have, what was the result of it? The Provincial Congress government passed a bill to address the grievances. Next, we have the Peasant Movement in Bihar, 1929-39. So this happened in Bihar. Who was the leader? It was Swami Sachidanand. Then, what was the reason? Sorry, the leadership was Swami Sachidanand. What was the reason? Zamindari abolition, illegal cess, and bakasht land. Fine. Now, if you don't understand any of these terms, you will let me know in the comment section and I'll be more than happy to address your doubts, guys. Okay? What was the result of it? The movement lost its steam after a few reforms by the government, and then obviously there was repression by the British government. Then we have the peasant movement in Punjab. This happened 1930-40. Areas are Jalandhar, Amritsar, Hoshiarpur, Shekhapura. Then who are the leaders? You have Sohan Singh Bakhna, Jwala Singh, Tej Singh, Master Hari Singh. What was the reason? There was a hike in canal tax, high revenue demands in Amritsar and Lahore. Movements, what was the effect? Movements by Naujawan Bharat Sabha, Akali's Kirti Kisan's party, and there was a bill which was passed in 1943. Next we have the Worli movement. This was in 1945-49 and this is a region near Mumbai. Who's the leader? We have Godavari Parulkar. And then what were they against? Against Begar. What is Begar? Begar is forced labor. Fine. So what you can see as a result, there was an increase of communist influence over here. Next, we have the Tibhaga movement. This is 1946-50. Then this is happening in Dinajpur, Rangpur, Jalpaiguri, Meman, Midnapur, Kulna. Fine. These are the regions. Then you have the leadership. Krishna Vinodi Rai, Avni Lahiri, Sunil Sen, Bhavani Sen, Moni Singh. So what was the reason? It was decided to pay 1/3 only to the landlords. Fine. And they were asking for more. What was the result? Suhrawardi ministry took steps to address the problem and this passed a regulation. Then you have Punnapra-Vayalar uprising. This is 1946. Now you will see, guys, that some of these peasant movements are also happening after independence. So obviously after independence, things are not just going to get solved in one go. Things will take time. So that is why you see these revolts. So this was in Travancore. And who was the leader? It was Manathu Padmanabha Pillai. What were the reasons? Famine conditions, fine. Designs of C.P. Ramaswamy to remain independent. So he wanted this area to remain independent. And what was the result? Accession of Travancore to India. So finally Travancore succeeded, realized that they have to become part of India. Earlier they wanted to remain independent. And lastly, we have the Telangana movement. This happened from 1946 to 51. The region is Telangana. The leadership is Puchula Pallai Saundarya. And what was the reason? Against feudal atrocities of the Nizam rule. Okay. Now played a role in the demise of the Nizam rule and also in the abolition of the Jagirdari. So I'm sure you are familiar with the role of the Razakars, right? The role that the Razakars have played. So here, they were really fed up with the Nizam and what he was doing, the oppression that he was keeping the people in. And finally, it resulted in the abolition of the Nizami rule, okay? So these were all of your peasant movements which have happened from British India to Free India. We have discussed the movement, their date, their region, their reason and their final result. Okay. Now this has been done in a very short manner, guys, because I have, made a table here. I have made it in a tabular form. The reason for making it in a tabular form is so that you have access to it in just one go. So if you're revising, this is not for your learning. But when you're revising and you have to just revise things in one go, this is going to be really, really helpful. Okay. So remember the date, remember the location, remember the region, remember the person who is the leader, remember what was the reason behind, and remember the ultimate effect of it. Okay. All right. So that's about it for today's video, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed it. I really hope that you found this useful for your examinations. so that you're able to revise in one go. If you have any doubts and any confusions regarding some of the words which have been used here, so you will let me know and I will definitely do a discussion on it. I have not discussed this in the video because I assume that you are already familiar with those words. So I did not want to, go over them once again. But if you're not, you will let me know and I will definitely help you with it. All right. So thank you so much for joining me here. It was an absolute pleasure to have you all. I will now see you in the next video. Till then, please take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.